Okay, welcome to Maker Challenge Day 3. Today we're going to be doing a growth chart on a large board that is going to be about 6.5 feet tall and 7 3/8 inch wide and 1 inch thick. So you're probably wondering how are they possibly going to do this on the Glowforge? Well, just some pieces of it are going to be on the Glowforge. We're going to use a new tool today called the Shaper, which is a little CNC router machine that I've never used before, so my husband is going to be doing some teaching. And then we're going to use that to remove where the lines are going to be for our ruler, our growth chart. And then we're going to use the Glowforge for engraving in the name of the person this is for, the child it's for, using the magnet hack on the doors of the Glowforge and for the board to go through. So you don't need any specific Glowforge machine. It doesn't matter if you have a Pro or a Plus or a Basic. It should work for all of them. So here we go. You'll notice that, hi, you can see me now, so let me know if you like being able to see me in the camera or not. We downloaded some new software today to help out with this recording journey that I am now on. So we're using Inkscape. We have a new document, and I would like to start with creating whatever size of board I am. So right here is my standard Glowforge bed that is my template. So whenever I open up Inkscape, I come to this template that is based on the size of what the engraving cutting bed is for the Glowforge. So whatever I put in here and then load over to the Glowforge should actually work. But this is much bigger than what the Glowforge bed is, and so anytime I'm doing a mock-up, I usually move it over to the side so I don't have to worry about where this template is. So here is our board. We want it to be about, let's see, what did I say my size was here? 7 3/8 inches wide. So 7 plus 3 divided by 8 inches. And our height is going to be 6.5, so 12 times 6.5 is 78. So there's our size for our board. And just because visually I want to be able to see it more, I want to increase my stroke size just to make this just a little bit darker so I can see the outline. That's probably not here. Let's try 0.1. There we go. So it's just a little bit darker. So we're going to actually use a new tool called Transform. I have it opened up here. You can get to it, let's see, here, Object, and then Transform, and it will open it up over here on the right hand side for you. And we're going to create our line using our Bezier tool. So here's our Bezier tool, and we're just going to go ahead and hold Control down while you click and drag. And so Control is making it so that it's a straight line along the path for what you're doing. So we're just going to make our line, and then before we move our mouse again, you double click to end your Bezier tool. So here is our straight line. And I'm going to say I actually want it to be 4 inches wide. So I did a little bit too much drawing, but that's okay. And, oops, I don't want it that much. I want it to just be a little bit thicker stroke so I can see it better. So we'll move it over here onto our board. So if we think about growth charts, the typical growth charts, and like the one that I have on my wall too, the board doesn't start at the bottom of the floor. You need to give a little bit of space between where your floor is and where the board actually starts, because you don't know where your client is going to be installing it. So they might have a molding going across, or there might be something going on on their floor. So you want to give a little bit of space. So you won't always start it at 0. You're gonna start it at a little bit higher. So this board is going to start at 6 inches as our height. And then when you go to install the board, you tell your client their instructions for installing, and they want to take into account where their floor is, where the child is or the person is going to be standing, and if there's carpet or anything, if there's a little bit of give, and then use a ruler or a measuring tape to then line up that 6 inches to be 6 inches off the floor. So then they mark the wall, and then that's how they're going to attach the board to the wall so that it's actually accurate, so that when your person who's getting measured on the growth chart backs up to it, lines up to it, it's accurate going up the rest of the way. So for our tool here, we have this line, and we'll position it here within our box later, but the first thing that we want to do is we want to create 12 marks, because we're going to split our board, each foot, into 12 inches. And so the transform tool will help with that quite easily. So we have our tool. We're actually going to go every inch. We want 12 of them. So if you have it highlighted and you have it programmed over here, vertical 1 inch, then you can do Control D, or you can come over here and you can object and you can duplicate it. I like using Control D. Actually, it might be Edit Duplicate, so it's under Edit Duplicate, but Control D is what I'm used to because of keyboard strokes. And then when you copy it now, or you duplicate, there's 2 of them there. So you could manually try to place it and line it up, but Inkscape has a tool to align this for you. So I deleted mine, so I'm going to Control Duplicate, and then I have it set to 1 inch as a relative move, and then I apply. And it automatically moved it up 1 inch. Control D to duplicate, apply. Control D to duplicate, and so we're just making a duplicate and moving it up 1 inch at a time. So we're going to do 12 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now we have 12 of these. And then we need to resize our lines to follow what a traditional ruler would be. So if we count up to 6, that'll be our middle mark for 6 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's see. Okay, yep, we're good there. So that's our middle mark, and I want my halfway point to be just a little bit shorter. And then we need to figure out what our next measurements are going to be. And so typically then our next one is going to be at the quarters. So this one and this one, right? If I'm looking at it correctly. So if I click on that one, and then I click on 1, 2, 3, that one, and then so both of them are selected, and then I can go to say I want that one to be 2 inches wide, and it automatically resizes both of them. And then I want to grab our sets of 2, and I want that one to be 1 inch wide. So here we have our measurements for our ruler. To start off with, we're going to put a text on here and say this is 1. And we'll play with font and placement of numbers and all of that later. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 inches, or 1 foot. And we don't have anything down here to represent the 0 because that's going to be taken into account over here. You could choose to also, have, if I duplicate this and bring it down, and I can say, I could put on here 6 inches if I wanted to, or I could say 1/2, or however you want to do it. For this design, I'm just going to go with the 1. So now we have our initial 1 foot mark. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to duplicate this. So here is all of our settings. We have it all specified to what we want it to be. So we'll go over here and we're going to change our transform tool being to 12 inches. So we're going to duplicate by foot. So you can do this by manual again. You can copy all, you can duplicate, and then you can grab it and you can try to position it up and try to figure out, you know, where is it going to be. But you could have the program do it for you. So if you grab it, again, we're going to duplicate, and then we're going to have it move it relative 12 inches, apply. So now it did the mathematical relationship and just moved it to the right place. And this is 2. So then we just kind of keep doing that. So we're going to do that again. Actually, I'll just grab this one. We're going to duplicate, apply, duplicate, apply, Control D for duplicate, apply, and where are we at here? 2, 3, 4, 5, duplicate, apply, and we're going to take it up to 7 feet here. But I'm going to chop off the top because I only need to take it up to 6.5. So here is our ruler. One thing that I want that I was asking the client for, and so I don't know if you heard, the text just came in. She said, I had asked her, you know, if she wants to be, it's a friend of mine, she wants it to be centered. So if we center this and then position it on, and this isn't in the exact, I'm going to turn off snapping. Sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they drive me nuts. I'm going to position it on the board, and this isn't actually exactly where it's going to go, but in fact I could have just done it with the whole thing and centered it. So I like the idea, and I wish the one that we have were made that way, and maybe eventually I'll redo it. Because I didn't make it, I had ordered it way before I knew how to do all of this. That the measurements are all going down the middle, because then when you line up, you know, your child is lining up, they're going to back up to the board, and then I use the ruler to hold on their head, and then we mark it across the board. And if it's on the left, which is what traditional measurement growth charts do, because then it looks like a ruler, right? If we do this all and we line it to the left, it looks like a ruler, but then you have your mark here in the middle, and then we have to draw a line over to figure out where it is they're measuring. So to me, it's a little bit of a pain in the rear to try to do that, and then it makes the board a little bit more messy, and etc. But people are used to having it look like this, and so she just replied and said she's at her son's hockey game, and she pulled the crowd, and everybody's saying, do it to the left. So that's what they want to do, so that's what we'll do. But when I upload this file later, I'll post both of them as the right and the left, because why not? Or not right and left, but centered and left, because why not? And you could recenter it yourself too. But so here is our growth chart. We're going to flip it back to being to the left. But so the next part is, I said, remember to make sure that you have your gap at the bottom. So we're going to chop off the bottom measurements here, and we actually don't even need that mark. So our very bottom of the board doesn't actually matter where it's going to be. This is just a visual, really. We're going to center it on over to line up. Oh, except I grabbed my numbers too. So we're going to pull that out. So just barely. Just barely above. Because you don't, I don't know about you all, but you don't usually have a child that's 6 inches tall and having them standing up to the board. Okay, so my numbers are in place. This is a visual. You know, the floor is actually there's gonna be an open space here. That didn't work. Oops, wrong tool. Holding control down. There's gonna be an open space here to the floor. So if we put just a little info here that says gap with no board for wall accents to fit. If that makes sense. This growth chart relative to the 1 foot mark using a ruler or measuring tape. And it looks like I actually shouldn't have chopped off. We will, oh, I forgot. We don't actually want, we're going to subtract 6 inches here. We're going to cut the board down to 72. Okay, so let's put our numbers on. So we've got 1, we've got 2 that needs to get moved. And we probably want a little bit bigger. Zoom in so I can actually grab things. And we need to actually choose our font too. And I was thinking about fonts earlier. So one of the things, the tool that we're going to be using to do all of these lines and our number engraves is a router. And so it's got a circle bit. So we need to make sure that there isn't a lot of sharp corners with what we're going to do. And so all of these are actually going to end up being a little bit rounded. So we could change what our line looks like if we really wanted to, but it's not necessary. The shaper will read it and recognize. But for visual aspects, I want to choose a font that fits this. So to do that, I have WordMarket installed on my computer. I have way too many fonts, as I've mentioned before. So if I open up WordMarket, I can put in my number sequence and I can hit enter and I can find some fonts that I think would look really nice or be relative to it. One of the fonts that I have installed actually on the computer is some Harry Potter versions, and so I thought, well, maybe that could look pretty cool. So before we look too much further, I want to open up Dumbledore here and just see what some of these fonts look like. Yeah, those aren't going to be very good because they're really angular. So I spent some time here looking through fonts and I came across this Bayou Prahara 2 Bold. So I liked that one. It's got the rounded aspect that goes with it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one. If I know how to spell it correctly. Bayou. Too bold. And I can actually center these on each other. Perfect. Oops. So one thing about Inkscape is whatever the last one you click on, that's one that's going to stay in place, and that's what everything moves to. So when you are trying to align to a certain thing, you make sure that you have to go in the right order. So that way, the very first one is the one that I want to move, and the very last thing, or the first several are what I want to move, and the last thing that I click on is what it's relative to. So I wanted the 2 to be centered relative to the line. And I want my 2 and my 1 to be centered together, but I'm going to move both of them out just a bit. So if you hold down Control when you're doing things, so we're actually going to duplicate 2, and then we're going to we're going to move our 2 up 1 inch. Whoops, that's the height, sorry. Our Y, we're going to move it up by 1 by 12, there we go. And then we'll just change this to say 3. And we'll repeat. So we have this one, we're going to duplicate, we're going to go over, we're going to add 12, and it's just going to keep rolling up. So then we're going to take this and change it to 4. We're going to duplicate. When we duplicate it, we're going to add 12 to move it up the 12 inches or 1 foot. Again, we're going to duplicate. We're going to move that up 12. Forgot to change this to 5. Change that to 6. And there we have our growth ruler. So one of the things, a couple of other things that we're doing is we're going to put a name on it. So we're going to do Aiden. And we'll resize all this later, but so I should actually ask her if she wants the name to be going up, if she wants it horizontal or vertical. And she likes the idea of having the name run up and down the board. So we're gonna, actually let's change our font first before we do that part. So let's make it the Bayou. And on this, I really don't like how close the letters are together, so I'm going to space them out just a little bit more. By using this spacer tool, it can stretch it out. Yeah, that's good. And then we'll flip it sideways. And we're going to put it along the side, but this 6 here is kind of in the way, so we're going to go ahead and move that up. there we go. We have our file. So the next steps for this would be to obviously save it. So we're going to get it saved, and then we'll get it ready to load into the shaper file. We're going to go save this under commissions. One thing I forgot to mention, so I'm actually going to flip this over to be in a blue color. This is going to be engraved in the Glowforge machine. So when we get to that point, we'll split up the file and get it ready for loading in and positioning then in the Glowforge. At that point in time, all of the numbers and lines and stuff will already be on the board, and we'll just be doing an engrave of the name.